The Millionaire, The Pregnant Wife, and The Cruise of Betrayal. Hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications. You won't believe how this high-stakes marriage collapses in one shocking moment. Cruise ship collision. Imagine the scene. Miami's Port, Florida. A glittering symbol of sun, high life, and endless possibility. Giant palm trees sway. The air is thick with the buzz of 1,000 tourists, and the majestic Majesty of the Seas cruise liner is a floating palace. But hidden within this picture-perfect postcard, destiny had laid a savage trap. A man, Julian Vance, steps off the gangway, tanned and beaming, with a woman who is decidedly not his wife clinging to his arm. Just 60 feet away, waiting for him, stands his wife, Evelyn Hayes, visibly and heavily pregnant, her heart already shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. She's here to witness the public, undeniable collapse of her entire world. A single act of betrayal has the power to destroy the strongest bonds. One moment, life is a perfect image, a loving marriage, a baby on the way, and a dream unfolding like a fairy tale. The next, a single lie, or in this case, a whole cruise ship of them, rips everything apart. This is the story of how one woman's discovery changed countless lives forever. If you think this is the definitive end of Julian and Evelyn's fairy tale, smash that like button right now. Part 1. The gold-plated facade and the inevitable fracture. Julian Vance always knew how to command a room. Tall, with dark, slicked-back hair that barely showed a hint of gray, he stood out not just for his imposing height, but for the quiet, almost lethal confidence he exuded. Raised in a working-class neighborhood in Boston, Massachusetts, nothing in his background hinted at the immense fortune he would one day amass. Through aggressive tech investments, an uncanny ability to predict market shifts, and an impressive charisma that could disarm the most skeptical investor, he had built a billion-dollar financial empire in New York City before hitting 40. Married to Evelyn Hayes Vance, a former high-powered branding executive turned dedicated spouse, Julian's public life was picture-perfect. Evelyn was the epitome of grace, a woman of remarkable poise and deep empathy. Their whirlwind romance began with late-night dates in Greenwich Village, continued with romantic escapes across the globe, and culminated in a lavish wedding on a private estate in Napa Valley. Despite the opulence, friends whispered about a genuine bond between them, a flash of true tenderness in Julian's eyes when he looked at Evelyn, and a radiant glow whenever she spoke of her husband. They were the it couple of the financial world, living a life of grandeur and ease between their Manhattan penthouse and their estate in the Hamptons. Evelyn, initially shy of the media spotlight, learned to handle the cameras. Like Julian, she came from modest roots and never let fame go to her head. She hosted high-profile charity auctions for struggling single mothers and often spoke about balancing ambition with kindness. Julian and Evelyn truly seemed to have the strongest marriage. Do you believe that extreme wealth always corrupts loyalty? Or is temptation just an excuse for fundamental weakness? Drop your opinion in the comments below. Yet, subtle changes began to root themselves in Julian's behavior. He started spending more time away from home, blaming crucial new deals or last-minute office crises. Evelyn, who was pregnant after years of trying, convinced herself she had to be patient and understanding. She attributed his absences to work stress, wholeheartedly believing he was tirelessly pushing to secure their family's future. But as her bump grew, so did her sense of unease. Julian came home later and later and seemed strangely uninterested when she tried to talk about the baby, the monumental event they had both longed for. A shadow hung over him, a tension that made him flinch whenever she tried to embrace him. In the pit of her heart, Evelyn sensed an approaching storm. Part 2. The Forbidden Pull of Chloe Ryan. Behind Julian's new distance lay a secret that would soon shatter his marriage. A nearly year-long affair with a woman named Chloe Ryan, a magnetic digital marketing consultant, 12 years his junior. Chloe, with her glossy black hair and dazzling green eyes, caught Julian's attention instantly at a high-end networking dinner in NYC. She radiated an ambition that matched his, peppered with a razor-sharp wit. The affair began in secret, hidden behind business meetings, in luxury lounges, exclusive restaurants, and eventually penthouse suites Julian could effortlessly afford. Chloe was captivated by his tales of corporate conquests and global travel, eager to partake in the luxury he offered. In return, her youth and enthusiasm gave Julian a thrill he hadn't felt in years. Chloe saw in Julian the power and sophistication she had always craved. She had fought her way up from a small town in upstate New York. Now, with Julian, the door to a world of privilege had been ripped open, and she was too mesmerized to pull away. While Evelyn prepared for their baby's arrival, buying the safest stroller and meeting with obstetricians, Julian spent more and more nights away, tangled in Chloe's arms. He lavished her with expensive jewelry, designer clothes, and weekend trips to exclusive resorts on the California coast. Guilt gnawed at Julian, though it didn't stop him. He would often look at Evelyn's growing belly and feel a pang of remorse so sharp it nearly buckled him. She was carrying his child, a life they had prayed for. He tried to convince himself he'd end the fling, but every time he saw Chloe, the magnetism was too strong. They would meet in a private suite at the Ritz-Carlton, enjoying room service and champagne, with the city lights twinkling far below. Part 3. The Private Investigator and the Cruise Ship Tracker. Evelyn's intuition, sharpened by love and mounting anxiety, whispered that Julian's absence was not just about work. One Friday afternoon, under the pretense of finding a recipe, she picked up Julian's unattended phone. He had always been protective of it, but this time it was lying on the kitchen counter. With trembling hands, she unlocked the screen. The messages were mostly business, until she found a mysterious thread with no name, just an emoji of a palm tree. Her heart pounded as she read the flirty exchanges, references to midnight rendezvous, sweet I miss you notes, and details about luxury hotel meetups. Evelyn felt the floor sink beneath her. She knew another woman was intimately involved with her husband. Fear, rage, and confusion attacked her all at once. She resolved to gather more proof so she could confront him with absolute certainty. She noticed Julian's behavior becoming even more guarded. Late nights turned into nights where he didn't come home at all. She began digging into credit card statements, finding inexplicable transactions, expensive dinners at unknown restaurants, or hotel bookings far away. Evelyn confided her fears in her best friend, Carla Johnson. Carla, enraged on Evelyn's behalf, urged her to hire a private investigator. Despite the terror, Evelyn's motherly instinct grew stronger. Her unborn son deserved a stable home. She hired P.I. Marcus Bell, a former NYPD officer known for success in high-profile marital disputes. Marcus assured her he would get to the bottom of it. Thus, two plans began unfolding simultaneously. Julian's glamorous rendezvous on a Caribbean cruise, and Evelyn's quest for the truth. To mitigate the rising tension, Julian latched onto Chloe's idea of a private getaway. He needed a break from the surging guilt, a chance to fully indulge in a fantasy. He told Evelyn he had critical business overseas that would require over a week. She voiced concern, reminding him his due date was only 2 months away, but he dismissed her fears with carefully rehearsed reassurances. Julian booked a lavish suite aboard the Majesty of the Seas cruise liner, He chose a week-long Caribbean itinerary, departing from Miami, visiting several sun-drenched islands. He believed a massive ship, teeming with thousands of cruisers, would be a safe haven for the secret. Part 4. The Miami Pier and the Final Trap. Port Miami, bustling with tourists, hummed with excitement as the enormous Royal Caribbean ship loomed in the background. On the morning of the departure, Julian and Chloe arrived separately to avoid drawing attention. They exchanged discreet smiles as they headed for check-in, eager to escape to their floating paradise. On board, they toasted with welcome champagne. Chloe clutched Julian's arm, feeling like royalty, far from judging eyes. Julian, for his part, allowed himself a fleeting sense of freedom. Unbeknownst to them, P.I. Marcus Bell had been trailing Julian for days. By checking financial transactions and flight records, he suspected a cruise was on the agenda. Marcus followed Julian's trail to Miami, gathering photographic evidence. On the day of the departure, he positioned himself among the crowd, snapping pictures of Julian and Chloe as they boarded together. He even managed to secure a stateroom on the same ship, prepared to document every bit of proof Evelyn deserved. The cruise sailed smoothly, and for Julian, every new island offered a temporary reprieve from guilt. For Chloe, the trip was like stepping into a fantasy realm. Yet beneath their sun-kissed smiles lay truths they dared not examine closely. Marcus Bell skillfully blended into the crowd. Every time Julian leaned in to kiss Chloe's cheek or wrap an arm around her waist, Marcus discreetly snapped a photo. He documented it all: the stolen smiles, the embraces, the gold keycard to Julian's opulent suite. On the fourth night, the gala night, Chloe appeared in a shimmering silver backless dress, looking like a movie star. Julian wore a custom-tailored tuxedo. They danced beneath glittering chandeliers, oblivious to the curious glances. The detective already had enough evidence, but he felt a more dramatic confrontation was inevitable. The most secure people in their deception are the ones most likely to make a public mistake. The countdown to the unveiling has begun. Comment below. Do you think Evelyn should confront Julian publicly at the port or wait for the privacy of the courtroom? Your opinion matters. On the fifth day, the ship docked at a small tropical island. Julian and Chloe disembarked hand in hand for a private snorkeling excursion. With a telephoto lens, Marcus captured their playful interactions. That evening, as the ship pulled away from the island, Marcus made a covert call to Evelyn. "I have everything," he whispered. "Enough photos and documentation. I think you need to come to the port when they dock. Sometimes." Seeing is believing. Evelyn, despite her terror, agreed. She needed closure, however painful. Part 5. The public confrontation. The morning of the ship's return to Miami, tension crackled in the air. Julian and Chloe were among the crowd lining the railing. Chloe wore a carefree smile, chatting about her plans to gleefully post photos on Instagram. She had no idea that, just beyond the crowds, the judgment wait was over. On the shore, Evelyn stood with Marcus Bell by her side. She wore a simple maternity dress, and her bump was unmistakable. Her eyes were tight with determination. Carla Johnson was also there, offering emotional support. Evelyn's heart hammered louder than the clamor of the disembarking travelers. She held herself steady, biting her lip to hold back tears. She had to watch Julian come off that ship with the other woman. She needed that final confirmation so she could stop wondering and stop clinging to a vain hope. Once the gangway was secured, the passengers began to disembark. And then, finally, Julian walked out with Chloe by his side. Their hands were intertwined. Chloe pressed close to him, her face alight with holiday happiness. At first glance, Julian's expression reflected his contentment. But the moment his eyes landed on Evelyn, standing only 60 feet away, his face drained of color, turning ashen instantly. Chloe froze, glancing back and forth between the visibly pregnant woman staring at them and Julian, who wore a look of absolute horror. Evelyn held Julian's gaze, tears shining, but refusing to fall. Her entire world collapsed in those few seconds. Julian attempted to pull free of Chloe's grasp, but she held onto his arm, bewildered. "What is happening?" she demanded, her voice rising above the noise. Before Julian could answer, Evelyn stepped forward, her voice trembling with betrayal. "Are you going to introduce me to your new friend?" she asked, sarcasm dripping from every syllable. Chloe gaped, her expression transforming from confusion to chilling understanding. This was Julian's wife, pregnant with his child. Marcus snapped the moment on camera, the tableau of a shocked husband, his glamorous mistress, and a heartbroken, pregnant wife. All illusions of secrecy vanished in an instant, leaving only the raw truth. "How could you do this to me?" Evelyn demanded, her voice breaking. "We tried for a baby for years. We finally have a miracle on the way, and this is how you repay me? By running off with her?" Julian stammered excuses, attempting to deny the facts. Humiliation burned his face. Chloe found her own voice amid the tumult. "You said you were unhappy in your marriage, that you were practically separated, that you wanted a fresh start with me. You never told me she was pregnant." Marcus discreetly guided Evelyn away from the crowd. Chloe tore off the diamond bracelet Julian had gifted her and threw it at his feet. The metal clinked loudly on the concrete. In that moment, her illusions shattered. Julian, left alone, felt the weight of his sins suffocate him. Paparazzi, alerted by a tip, flanked him, shouting questions, capturing every second of his public downfall. Everything Julian had built, his image, his marriage, the trust of those who admired him, lay in ruins. Part 6. Evelyn's Justice and the Punishment of Regret. What followed was a cascading series of consequences that toppled Julian's carefully constructed empire. News of his affair spread like wildfire across social media and tabloid headlines. Shareholders panicked. In the days after the confrontation, Julian frantically tried to contact Evelyn. She didn't respond to his calls or messages. When he showed up at their Manhattan penthouse, he discovered Evelyn had already taken her belongings and moved to a secure location. Via a letter from her lawyer, Evelyn made it clear she was filing for separation, citing his egregious breach of marital vows. Several key partnerships withdrew from Julian's companies. The empire he had built over decades buckled under the strain of public outrage. Meanwhile, Chloe was quietly fired from her job. The gifts and perks vanished, and she found herself scrambling to make rent on her luxury apartment. Anguish gripped Julian. Rumors swirled that Evelyn planned to leave the city for the remainder of her pregnancy. His lawyers warned him that divorce proceedings loomed, with a likely substantial alimony and child support judgment. Then came the final blow. It was learned that Evelyn had gone into premature labor, triggered by the stress. Though mother and child were stabilized, doctors warned that emotional turmoil could compound complications. Julian wasn't even allowed inside the hospital. Days later, Evelyn gave birth to a baby boy, whom she named Ethan. She sought sole custody, citing Julian's unstable behavior. Evelyn's lawyers presented the damning evidence of his affair as proof of moral unfitness. Marcus Bell provided the photographs, along with testimonies from the cruise ship staff. Julian was forced to agree to supervised visits. It was not the paternal role he had envisioned, but a man relegated to a sterile little room with a court monitor. Evelyn, determined to reclaim her life, channeled her energy into motherhood. She sold the Manhattan penthouse, preferring a quieter home. The settlement money, coupled with her own savings, allowed her to invest in a small but promising marketing startup. Her heartbreak morphed into a quiet resolve to give Ethan the life he deserved. As for Julian, his business empire, though still operating, was heavily fractured. Public scorn followed him. The final stab at his pride came when he tried to rebuild his image by announcing charitable donations. The public saw right through his attempts, labeling them desperate acts of atonement. Julian has lost his marriage, his reputation, and his trust. Do you think this level of punishment is enough for genuine change, or will repentance never be real for a man so powerful? Share your final thoughts. Part 7. The Crucible and the Last Chance. Life for Evelyn Hayes Vance had settled into a routine. Her startup was steadily growing, and Ethan was a healthy, energetic toddler. Fear and rage had been replaced by quiet determination. She had learned that control over her own life was the real luxury, not her ex-husband's fortune. Julian, meanwhile, had clung to fatherhood like a lifeline. Supervised, and later unsupervised, visits with Ethan were the sole engine of his existence. He had sold most of what remained of his empire to pay debts and settlements, now living a modest life that contrasted brutally with his past. Therapy had taught him to see the magnitude of his selfishness. He was no longer the arrogant mogul, but a broken, repentant man desperately trying to be worthy of the word father. Do you think Julian's change is genuine after losing his fortune? Or is it just a desperate strategy to win back Evelyn and his son? We want to read your theories on repentance in the comments. The unexpected scare, just as life seemed to fall into a delicate balance, fate threw a new, cruel test. One cold winter morning, during one of their scheduled visits, Ethan, now almost 2, suffered a severe, unexpected seizure. Julian, who was playing with him in the park, panicked. Instinctively, he did what Evelyn had taught him. He called 911, and then, despite his terror, he called Evelyn. Evelyn arrived at the hospital minutes later. Seeing Julian, pale and disheveled with panic, clutching Ethan's favorite small toy, an old reflex of anger died out. Now, they were just 2 terrified parents. "What happened? Did you do something?" Evelyn demanded, her eyes bloodshot. "No, I don't know," Julian stammered, tears welling up. "He just collapsed and started shaking. The doctor said it's serious. They need to run tests." Doctors diagnosed a rare autoimmune condition affecting Ethan's nervous system. It would require a series of experimental treatments and, potentially, an operation at a specialized medical center in Zurich, Switzerland. The treatment bill was astronomical, even for Julian's remaining wealth. Evelyn, while now a successful entrepreneur, couldn't cover these extraordinary costs alone, without liquidating her startup and her son's financial security. She turned to Julian. "We need the money," Evelyn said in the waiting room, her voice hoarse. "Everything you have left. You have to sell what's left of your stock. Whatever it takes, Julian. Ethan's life demands it." Julian nodded, without hesitation. "I'm doing it already. I called my lawyer the minute I got here. I'm liquidating the last big asset I have, the Hamptons estate and my private jet. I don't need any of it, Evelyn. Ethan does." In the following days, the former financial mogul, known for his greed, worked around the clock to dismantle the very last of his luxury life. For the first time in years, Julian wasn't acting out of ego, but out of a desperate, limitless, paternal love. The final sacrifice. The situation forced Evelyn and Julian to work as a team. They sat together in the hospital waiting room, reviewing medical reports and coordinating calls with Zurich clinics. They were no longer husband and wife, or traitor and victim. They were a rescue squad. During one of the long, sleepless nights, Julian broke the silence. "Evelyn," he said quietly, "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I need you to know something. When I lost everything, the money, the reputation, it hurt. But when I lost the possibility of being here with you and Ethan, That was hell. If I have to give my last penny and be homeless for Ethan to be cured, I will do it without a thought. Because you gave me this second chance to be a father, and I ruined it. But not anymore. Evelyn looked at him. In his eyes, she no longer saw the cold businessman or the liar. She saw a broken man, humbled by life, but purified by the love for his son. "I'm not asking you to be a beggar," she replied, her voice softer than she expected. "I'm just asking you to be a father, and you are being one." The settlement money, coupled with the sale of the Hamptons estate, covered the surgery costs. A week later, Evelyn and Julian flew to Zurich together, sitting side by side, with Ethan in Evelyn's arms. It was a luxury trip, but not for pleasure, for survival. The true test of a man is what he sacrifices when he doesn't have to. If you were moved by Julian's sacrifice, share this video to remind others that redemption is possible. Redemption in the waiting room. Ethan's surgery was tense and lasted 8 hours. Evelyn and Julian sat in silence. Julian, who had negotiated multi-billion-dollar deals without blinking, now writhed with anxiety. When the surgeon finally emerged, he announced the operation was a success. Ethan would make a full recovery. A sob of relief escaped Evelyn. Julian stood up, and for the first time in years, they allowed themselves an embrace, not of marital love, but of shared parental gratitude and relief. "We did it," Julian whispered, feeling Evelyn's shoulder tremble. "Ethan is safe." Returning to the U.S., the relationship between Evelyn and Julian was changed forever. They did not reconcile. The damage of the betrayal was too deep for that. But the wall of Evelyn's anger and resentment had been broken down by her son's illness and Julian's sacrifice. Evelyn allowed Julian to have a more natural, active role in his son's life, without the coldness of legal arrangements. He became the father he was always meant to be. Julian, stripped of his fortune but rich in purpose, opened a small investment consultancy, making an honest living. He no longer chased the glitter of luxury, but the joy of picking up his son from preschool. Karma had stripped Julian of his wealth and power to save his soul. And Evelyn, in her pain, had found the strength not just for revenge, but for offering the ultimate grace, ensuring her son had a present father, redeemed by sacrifice. The story ends not with a happily ever after, but with a peace finally found. Leave your final comment. Did Julian's sacrifice for Ethan earn your forgiveness? Do you think Evelyn and Julian could ever be friends? Your opinion is the voice of justice. And don't forget to subscribe. Until the next adventure, the millionaire, the pregnant wife, and the cruise of betrayal continue. Have you joined the community yet? Hit subscribe now and like this video. Don't miss the final chapter of Evelyn's ultimate victory. Part 8. Evelyn's independent empire and the humility of Julian. The encounter at the Zurich hospital and their shared relief marked the definitive end of the marital drama and the beginning of a new normal. Evelyn and Julian maintained a cordial, respectful relationship, entirely focused on co-parenting their son, Ethan. Ethan, now 7 years old, was an intelligent, sensitive boy with a special talent for drawing. Interestingly, he had Julian's natural charisma, but Evelyn's deep empathy. Although he knew his parents didn't live together, he grew up in a stable environment, filled with love, and free from the toxicity of lies. Julian was fully devoted to his ethical consultancy. His reputation, while never returning to its former glory, had been rehabilitated in specific circles thanks to his honest work. He committed himself to teaching Ethan about value, the importance of honesty, and the consequences of bad decisions, all without sugarcoating the past. If you believe a loving family environment is more important than a traditional structure, hit like and share to support Evelyn and Julian as co-parents. The return of Carla Johnson. A key figure in Evelyn's life who stood firm throughout the drama was Carla Johnson, Evelyn's best friend. Carla had been the pillar of support, the impromptu detective, and Ethan's godmother. She was always there, from the Miami port to the hospital waiting room. Carla, who was dedicated to the arts, had opened a contemporary art gallery in Brooklyn, New York, with moderate success. However, her bond with Evelyn was profound. They met often, and Carla was an essential aunt figure in Ethan's life. One evening, during a quiet dinner at Evelyn's home, Carla posed a question to her friend. "Evelyn, it's been nearly 7 years since the cruise. You built an empire, raised a healthy boy, and forgave Julian. Is there anything missing in your life?" Evelyn smiled, looking at Ethan, who was quietly drawing. "I have everything I need, Carla. Peace, success, and a wonderful son." Carla nodded. "I know, but I mean your happiness. You've been so focused on survival and victory that maybe you forgot what you wanted for yourself, not for the rescue squad." This conversation made Evelyn reflect. She had overcome the betrayal and thrived, but she hadn't allowed herself to open her heart to new romance, the legacy of friendship, and the new horizon. A year later, Evelyn's life took an unexpected turn. Her startup, which was now a renowned marketing agency, decided to open a main headquarters in Los Angeles, California, the very city where Carla had recently decided to move her art gallery for better exposure. This wasn't a coincidence, but a strategic move by Evelyn to be closer to her best friend and embark on a new chapter. Evelyn, Ethan, and their nanny moved to a beautiful apartment near Santa Monica Beach. Julian, although saddened by the distance, committed to traveling weekly to LA to see Ethan, upholding his promise to be a present father. The logistics were complicated, but their mutual respect made it possible. In Los Angeles, Evelyn and Carla, now living just miles apart, decided to combine their talents. Carla helped design the new agency headquarters, and Evelyn became the main promoter for Carla's gallery. The circle closed in a profound way. Julian's betrayal, which seemed destined to destroy Evelyn's life, actually liberated her to build a life where success was entirely her own, and family was defined by love, friendship, and mutual respect. Ethan grew up understanding that the scars of the past do not dictate the joy of the future, and that family is a refuge built with perseverance and honesty. The old fairy tale had transformed into a story of female empowerment and male redemption, proving that sometimes a broken ending is simply the beginning of a much stronger story. Evelyn's journey proves that the support of friends is vital. Leave a comment about what you admire most about the friendship between Evelyn and Carla, and how it helped them overcome adversity. Epilogue: the gala encounter and the final closure. The time, the great healer, continued its course. Ethan, completely recovered from his rare condition, turned into a whirlwind 2.5-year-old, scampering around Evelyn's house and bringing immense joy to their lives. Evelyn had not only saved her son's life, but had cemented her own empire. Her marketing startup, propelled by her unwavering determination, merged with a larger digital agency, making Evelyn a majority partner and a respected figure in the LA business community. A woman who built her wealth with honesty and talent. As for Julian, the former mogul, his life was the antithesis of his past. The sale of his last assets not only funded Ethan's healing, but granted him an unexpected freedom, the freedom from greed. His small investment consultancy focused on helping startups grow, using his expertise to build, not just to accumulate. He lived with humility, but with a purpose his former life never knew. Evelyn's success is a victory over betrayal. What do you think is Evelyn's greatest achievement? Her son's health or her independent professional success? Comment your opinion on the true rebirth. The encounter at the gala. Nearly 5 years after the fateful incident at Port Miami, Evelyn was invited as the keynote speaker to a prestigious charity gala at the Walt Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles, an event usually reserved for the untouchables of the elite. Walking down the red carpet, impeccable in a Spanish designer dress, Evelyn was no longer a mogul's wife. She was Evelyn Hayes Vance, the self-made businesswoman. Inside the majestic hall, as the orchestra music floated in the air, Evelyn sensed a familiar presence. She turned and, in a discreetly lit corner, saw Julian. He wasn't in a designer tuxedo, but a well-maintained, modest suit. He wasn't surrounded by bankers and paparazzi, but talking quietly with the director of a small NGO he was advising pro bono. He had aged, but his face no longer showed the tension of secrecy or greed. It only displayed a quiet humility. Evelyn approached, her heart beating with a mix of memories. "Julian," she said with a genuine smile. He turned, and his eyes lit up with joy upon seeing her. "Evelyn, you look spectacular. My congratulations on your speech. It was truly inspiring." They exchanged a few words about Ethan, who was on vacation with Carla at the time, and their son's latest tantrum. The conversation was easy, without bitterness, but with the comfort of two people who had shared a war and found a lasting truce. Julian revealed he was there for the NGO, seeking investors. "It's rewarding. I now use my skills to help people build something real, not just personal fortunes." Evelyn nodded, proud. She understood. Both had changed their measure of success. The definitive closure. Before parting, Julian paused, his eyes searching hers with seriousness. "Evelyn," he said, "it's been years, and I know I no longer owe you apologies but actions. But I just want you to know, the man who got on that cruise no longer exists. Karma stripped me of my wealth, and Ethan gave me a reason to use what little I had left for something bigger. Thank you for giving me the chance to be, at least, a good father." Evelyn, who had already forgiven Julian in her heart the day he sacrificed everything for Ethan, felt the final closure. "I believe you, Julian," she replied. "And I thank you. Thank you for being a good father to Ethan. That's all my son needs. And as for that cruise, it was the best thing that ever happened to both of us. It took away your illusion, and it gave me my freedom." With that unspoken truth floating between them, they both smiled at each other. There was no need for embraces or false promises. They had reached a mutual understanding. The betrayal had destroyed their marriage, but the love for their son had forged an unbreakable parental partnership based on a respect that wealth could never buy. Evelyn continued on her path, stronger, wiser, and completely free. Julian continued on his, humble, redeemed, and at peace. The circle was finally closed. The story of the pregnant wife who stood up to betrayal had become the legacy of the woman who found in heartbreak the catalyst for her own greatness. The story of Evelyn and Julian is a reminder that true victory is not revenge, but growth. If you enjoyed this epic conclusion and believe Evelyn is the epitome of strength and independence, leave a like and share your final thoughts on her legacy. And don't forget to subscribe. Until the next high-impact story. Part 9. The Open Road and the New Beginning in LA. The years following the gala encounter solidified the new normal for Evelyn. She was now in her early 40s, a period of life where confidence replaced former anxieties. She was financially independent, a respected figure in the tech marketing world of Los Angeles, and, most importantly, a deeply loving mother to Ethan. Her friendship with Carla Johnson flourished in LA. They were an unstoppable duo. Evelyn, the sharp business strategist, and Carla, the creative visionary. Their collaboration extended beyond business. They were each other's anchors in a city full of fleeting connections. Evelyn's new perspective on love. Evelyn had consciously avoided dating for years. She had built such a fortress of self-reliance that opening up seemed impossible. The trauma of Julian's betrayal had left a deep scar, making her wary of wealth and charm. "You need to remember, Eve," Carla told her one day over brunch in Santa Monica. "Julian's mistake wasn't about money or power. It was about character. Not every successful man is a liar. You deserve a partner who respects your strength, not one who tries to overshadow it." This conversation shifted Evelyn's perspective. She realized she was allowing a past mistake to block her future happiness. Do you think it's possible to truly trust again after a profound betrayal, especially when wealth was involved? Comment your thoughts on Evelyn's journey back to dating. The Shibu Introduction to Alexander Reed. A few months later, at a high-profile industry conference Evelyn was speaking at in San Francisco, she met Alexander "Alex" Reed. Alex was a successful, highly respected architect, known for his work in sustainable, community-focused developments across the West Coast. Alex was everything Julian had been on the surface: successful, charming, and driven, but with a quiet sincerity that felt immediately different. He drove a modest electric car, spoke passionately about urban planning, and, crucially, had an easygoing demeanor that didn't demand the spotlight. Their first conversation wasn't about business or money. It was about the challenges of raising children in a busy city. Alex had 2 teenage daughters from a previous amicable marriage. He listened intently when Evelyn spoke and seemed genuinely interested in her work, not just her title. For Evelyn, this was refreshing. Alex's success was measured not in net worth, but in the positive impact of his creations. Their first date was a hike through the hills, followed by takeout pizza, a world away from the 5-star dinners Julian had used to impress. The connection was natural, built on shared values, a dedication to family, a quiet ambition, and a disdain for pretense. The test of time and truth. Evelyn was careful. She was open about her past, explaining the painful, public divorce and the complex co-parenting relationship with Julian. Alex listened without judgment. "Your past made you who you are, Evelyn," he said simply. "It shows me you know how to build from the ground up, and you value honesty above all else. I respect that." He wasn't intimidated by her success or her complex family life. In fact, he found her resilience deeply attractive. Call to action. If you believe Evelyn deserves to find genuine love, click share and spread this story of second chances. Part 10. The Unbreakable Bond. As the relationship between Evelyn and Alex grew, the dynamic between Alex, Ethan, and even Julian became a new focus. Julian, true to his word, was an excellent co-parent. When he first met Alex, the moment was tense. Julian, humbled but still a bit territorial, shook Alex's hand firmly. Alex, sensing the need for reassurance, looked Julian straight in the eye. "I respect your role in Ethan's life, Julian. I'm here to support Evelyn and be a good friend to her son. That's all." Julian saw the sincerity and, for the first time, felt a strange sense of relief. He no longer had to be the only hero. He could simply be the father. Evelyn's ultimate victory was not just her wealth or her new love, but the creation of a harmonious family unit, where the child's well-being was the only currency that mattered. Ethan adored Alex's calm presence and enjoyed the outings with his 2 new big sisters. Julian maintained his weekly visits, secure in his place as the biological father and role model. The story had moved beyond revenge and even beyond redemption. It became a powerful testament to the idea that life's most profound moments of destruction can be the very catalyst for constructing something stronger, fairer, and more meaningful than the original dream. Evelyn Hayes Vance, the woman who witnessed the collapse of her marriage at a bustling port, had successfully navigated her way to a new horizon, one filled with respect, true partnership, and the quiet, enduring success of a well-lived life. The ultimate lesson. Evelyn's story teaches us that independence is not the end of love, but the foundation for finding the right kind of love. Leave a comment with the most important lesson you learned from this whole journey. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable adventure of betrayal, sacrifice, and ultimate redemption. Part 11. Ethan and the True Legacy. Ethan grew up in a unique environment. He had not only a resilient, successful mother, but also a father, Julian, who had undergone public repentance, and a stable stepfather figure, Alex. He became a child with extraordinary empathy and a unique outlook on success. Lessons from Julian. Julian, completely stripped of his former extravagance, dedicated his time to teaching Ethan about the true value of money. Instead of buying expensive toys, he taught his son how to make small investments in the stock of a toy company he loved, or how to financially plan for a camping trip. "Son," Julian told Ethan one day, while they were gardening together, Julian's new hobby, "money can build a big house, but only honesty and kindness can build a family. Your father learned that lesson the hard way." Lessons from Evelyn. Evelyn taught Ethan about independence and business ethics. She took him to the office, showing him how she worked with respect for her staff and clients. She taught him that sustainable success is built on reputation, not trickery. In your opinion, what is the most important thing Ethan learned from his parents? Repentance from Julian, or resilience from Evelyn? Comment your thoughts. Part 12. A new chapter for Evelyn and Alex. The relationship between Evelyn and Alex was unhurried. It developed slowly, based on mutual respect and the compatibility of core values. The trust test. Even after years, Evelyn had moments of doubt. One time, when Alex had to travel for work to Seattle to oversee a major project, an old reflex caused Evelyn to check his location. Instead of getting upset, Alex handled it with understanding. He video called her from the construction site, smiling, and said, "You don't have to check, my love. But if you need to, I'm always open. I know what you went through. Trust isn't something I expect to be given. It's something I have to earn every day." Alex's patience and compassion healed the wounds Julian had inflicted. He taught Evelyn that not all wealth comes with deception, and true love can coexist with complete independence. The final choice. 2 years after their encounter in Los Angeles, during a simple evening on Santa Monica Beach, Alex got down on one knee. The ring wasn't a huge diamond, but a simple, elegant platinum band designed by him. "Evelyn Hayes Vance," Alex said, "I love the strong, kind person you have become. I want to build a life with you, where we are equal partners, raising our wonderful children together." Evelyn, the woman who had walked away from the biggest diamond ring in Miami, shed tears and said, "Yes, it was a small, intimate wedding on a hillside overlooking the Pacific." Julian, at Evelyn's heartfelt invitation, attended with his son, standing back and witnessing the happiness that he had once destroyed, now rebuilt in a more unbreakable way. It was Evelyn's final act of forgiveness, and the ultimate proof of Julian's redemption. If this story teaches you that forgiveness is the key to unlocking future happiness, share this video immediately. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure of betrayal, sacrifice, and the rebirth of a great woman.